know what? There's only two mics there. Should I moderate you down there from up here? Okay. So the mic. Yes, I can call them up. Oh, I can't. I forget. No, no, no. Yes. I don't have more cards, but I have my QR. What do you say? Perfect. I will send you WhatsApp on that. Absolutely. Yeah. Around on those cards to the side. And you only have to wait. And you only have to wait. And you're more sustainable.
Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Tricia Beal. I serve as CEO of the Farm Journal Foundation, and I want to thank you all so much for joining us for this discussion on improving nutritious food systems in the face of climate change. The Farm Journal Foundation is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization working to advance global food and nutrition security, sustainable agriculture, and rural economic development. We believe in a future where food systems work for everyone, farmers, consumers, businesses, and the environment. We want to express our gratitude to the United Arab Emirates for their generosity to host COP28 and for the leadership that they have shown to boldly support platforms for agriculture innovation, including the CGIAR system, Aim for Climate, and Aim for Scale. Smallholder farmers, most of whom are women, produce around 80% of the food consumed in Africa and Asia, but they lack access to innovation and finance tools to improve their crop and livestock yields. Climate change is contributing to food shortages as higher temperatures and climate-fueled disruptions result in lost crops and livestock, and this makes it harder to produce nutrient-dense foods, including meat, eggs, and milk. This means there's less food to go around and often less nutritious food. Supporting these farmers to adapt to climate change will be critical to transforming food systems to better achieve global food and nutrition security. Today, we will focus on solutions from leaders and organizations who are driving innovations that support adaptation, protection, and improvement of food systems that enhance nutritional resources by delivering solutions to smallholder farmers. Our first speaker today leads the CGIAR system, and there is no other organization in the world that has the framework of science to address these complex issues for agriculture and our global food systems like the CGIAR. Please join me in welcoming the CGIAR Executive Managing Director, Dr. Ismahan Elowafe.
Thank you very much, Tricia, and really a pleasure to be with you today here as the first speaker in this session on really looking how we can really bridge the gap between technology and seeing it on the farmer field at a scale that makes sense. As Tricia said, really climate change is fueling a global food crisis. As we all know, the agriculture sector is producing less today than about 50 years ago because of climate change. And one of the really very important paper that showcased it was about 2-3 years ago in Nature that shows that if you take the exact same seeds and you put them in the ground right now with the exact same practices as 30 years ago, you still produce less. And that production less, it's mostly due to the carbon concentration in the air. At the same time, the sector of the agriculture is a sector that have a dual relationship with climate change. It does contribute to climate change, and we have about 30% of the emission coming from the sector, but also it's a sector that became more and more fragile because of the climate change. And many of the 500 million small-scale farmers that provide us about 2/3 of our food today really are very much affected by climate change. And think what we saw in Pakistan, be it the flood, be it the fires in Canada, be it in Australia, again, the drought or the floods in Nigeria and many other places, it's a testimony of really the climate crisis. The other connection between the food and nutrition security and climate change is that we are seeing numbers in terms of food insecurity and nutrition insecurity that are going up as the planet warms. And that relationship will show more. We have other areas that are affecting those numbers, including conflict, but still it's a relationship that we are seeing happening more and more. And I want to remind us all that today we have more than 780 million people that are still going to bed hungry. So if we recognize those relationships, definitely the solution is in transforming agri-food system. So when we talk about climate crisis and curbing it down, when we talk about adaptation and mitigation of the climate change, we need definitely to put central and front agri-food system transformation. And I think this has started back with the UN Food System Summit in 2021, where really we tried to bring the whole system together. And it was really a UN initiative that was supported by so many stakeholders to bring that system-level dialogue. With science, we can reduce the carbon footprint of the agri-food system. With science, we could breed better crops and better animals that will be more adaptable to plus 1.5 or plus 2 degrees, depends how we do in this planet and in all sectors. And I would like to give you a few examples. We have, for example, we have a new rice variety and cultivation practices that make us save about 50% of the water. We have other varieties in rice as well that's called direct seeding with the sub-1 gene that again allow us really to reduce tremendously up to 90% less methane. We have varieties in durum wheat and barley that allow us, not only they are more nutritious, but also they are drought tolerance. We have also examples outside the crop. We have in Bangladesh, there is a new type of shrimp called Artemia, and I just looked it up because I didn't know what it is, Artemia, and it's a very tiny white shrimp that really thrive into saline water and has excellent nutritional qualities. So the different commodities and the different agri-food system are working on the genetics to bring those genes that will allow us to produce more and more nutritious, both quantity and quality, but with less natural resources. So models like AIM4C are very vital catalysts for greater investment into transforming agri-food system in a climate crisis. CGIAR is fully aligned with mobilizing commitment and pace equal to the scale of the challenge. Aim4C aligns with and support our own ambition plan to secure $4 billion to fund our research portfolio for 2025-2027. And what is really important is that we are complementing each other. As a CGIAR and as the publicly largest funded public international agriculture research, we need to really get our innovation at scale. So we have a little bit of a roadblock in terms of really scaling up to millions and millions of people. And that's where Aim4C comes really as a vehicle to help us to go to that scale that we all need and we all required. Several innovation sprints have been launched to harness the power of science and research to address climate change and to transform our fragile agri-food system and to support better nutrition. For example, there is the Integrated Desert Farming Innovation Program Sprint that is focused on boosting agricultural livelihoods and food and nutrition and water security here in the Arabian Peninsula. And then I got an example that my colleague just looked at the number again to make sure it's correct, because the numbers are just like way too much improvement. So it's a traditional marab practice which involve creating areas of relatively flat land that slows the water flow after rainfall. And using this technology with the CGIAR support, the barley production in Jordan increased from 0.34 ton to 8.37 ton. So that's 2,461 times more. When I saw the number, I said, I can't say this number unless the scientists tell me it is true. So they went and they called the scientists and they said, yes, it's true. So sometimes really the point here, it's not the marab per se, it's the fact that there are some traditional knowledge that we have really put aside. And it's very important to bring them back. It's very important to bring them back, try them again, improve on them if needed, or just at least make them usable and make them known. So this marab, if it's allowing us to increase productivity by that much, that's wonderful. So we could dive into it and maybe improve on it as well. So back to Aim4C. Aim4C is also an effective model for ensuring inclusivity, focusing on populations that are often left behind. Women are disproportionately affected by the impact of our worsening climate. But we have seen time and time again that women empowered with the right tools and solutions uplift the entire communities. They uplift their own families, but also the entire community. This is the guiding principle behind our recently launched Climate and Gender Innovation Sprint, which aims to test and refine innovation that address both climate change and gender inequality. Women are more likely to adopt climate-smart practices when given the opportunity. And we have an example from household in Bangladesh where women have equal participation in decision-making, are more likely to grow a greater range of crops, increasing food security and nutrition, again, starting from the household level. But too often, innovation misses women and their unique needs. We would like to encourage you all to join us in supporting this sprint and its commitment to creating greater equality. And again, here, both the women and the youth are really a very specific target that we need really to work more on and try to make the innovation that works for them and that address their challenges. And here data is one of the issues. We don't have, in most times, we don't have enough segregated data to really analyze what would make the biggest bucks for the woman and what will help us to address those challenges that are quite specific for the woman. Climate change and food nutrition security, two of the world's most urgent challenges, are definitely very, very much linked. In a world that is 2 degrees warmer, an additional 189 million people will face hunger. In a 4-degree warmer, an additional 1.8 billion people will go hungry. So the numbers are exponential, and we better address it before it gets really more complicated. To close, the world needs CGIAR science today more than ever. The world needs CGIAR and its scientific communities, the whole scientific community behind the CGIAR, be it at the National Agricultural System, be it at the universities, be it at other regional or international agricultural research centers and institutions. But if we want to really harness science and innovation to find those solutions that will be well suited for the challenges of tomorrow and the challenges of 1.5 degree, 2 degree, or 4 degree, we need to invest more in science and innovation. So we have an investment plan that we were very thrilled to launch it on the 2nd of December with $900 million in that plan. But really, my call, since we have also the minister here from Malawi, is that we need really investment at the global level, but also at the national level. So we need really to put more emphasis on science and innovation, bringing in the new technologies with the old technologies, like the Marab example that I gave you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Elawafe. We appreciate your leadership, and we were elated to hear the commitments made by partners to the CGIAR this week. And it is true. I'm going to make a T-shirt that says, "The world needs CGIAR more than ever." You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
It is now my distinct honor and opportunity to introduce the Honorable Dr. Michael Usi, Minister of Natural Resources and Climate Change for the Government of Malawi. Thank you for joining us today.
There is a reason why I will not simply say all protocol observed. I will mention the names, although they will be difficult to pronounce. The reason is I want each person that I'm going to mention and the organizations herein to know that Malawi appreciates you. Malawi is very grateful for the partnership. Ismane Alofo, the Executive Manager Director of CGIAR, Tamar Wittes, the Director of Foreign Assistance at the U.S. State Department, Aveshan Khan, the Coordinator of the Scaling Up Nutrition Movement, Kramen San Segundo, Director of ECG and CSR, IBM, Ana Catalina Suarez Pena, of the Global Food Banking Network, our esteemed organizers, Tricia Bill, the CEO of the Farm Journal Foundation, and esteemed delegates. First of all, let me start by saying you may not know that the President of the Republic of Malawi, Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, and indeed the entire nation are all smiling at you. Smiling because your work in Malawi has given us the impression that you are truly investing in the rural people. It's not a project or programs that are catapulted from elsewhere and thrown onto Malawians, but Malawians are critical stakeholders on this journey of development. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Farm Journal for the invitation today to speak on this important topic of climate change, food security, and nutrition. And thank you to the Farm Journal Foundation for organizing this important event and the work you do to advance nutrition, food security globally. It is my pleasure to also be joined by these honorable speakers, and I look forward to the panel's discussions. Malawi is on the front lines of the climate crisis. In Malawi, agriculture forms the basis of the Malawi economy. It represents over 38% of gross domestic product and employs over 85% of the labor force. Unfortunately, agriculture faces challenges including impacts of climate crisis. You may have heard that last March, there was Cyclone Freddy, and over 600 people died, and about the same number are still buried under rubble. So Malawi lost a lot of infrastructure to do with agriculture. And now when we talk about innovation to improve agriculture in Malawi, we are looking at irrigation. Because now Malawi's economy, which is based on agriculture, is very much dependent on rain-fed agriculture. So if we migrate, now let me be positive, when we migrate, not if, because I know we will, with your support, migrate to agriculture, we will be assured of sustainable development. Malawi has been critically hit by extreme weather events in the past 5 years, and farming is already a precarious business because of the uncertainties. Women and children are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and we know to safeguard our future, we must ensure the long-term food security of our farmers and the long-term nutritional security of our children. We are therefore very pleased to partner with the USAID through the Feed the Future program, where we are working together to ensure improved crops, including more drought-tolerant peanuts. These are reaching hundreds of thousands of small-scale farmers. This work is improving nutritional outcomes for children, and the new seeds have greater yields. This is the benefit of research that has meaning. Because sometimes you have research, you agree with me, research that is on donors' expediency. But this type of research in Malawi are really looking in the eye of the problem. So we are very grateful that you are addressing the core issues in Malawi. Ladies and gentlemen, agriculture and the Feed the Future Malawi Growth Pause project is doing a lot of good. This work will support Malawi to achieve its goal of producing 1 million metric tons annually of high-quality granules by 2030. And Malawi has a blueprint which is guiding its development agenda. And one of the issues in there that no one should be left behind. And again, I go back to the issue of investing in the rural people. It's only when people understand what's happening, understand what is expected of them, that they become integral stakeholders in the journey. This is in line with our national priorities as outlined in the Malawi 2063. Partnerships like this with USAID to advance food and nutritional security are critical. I'm also eager to hear about the partnership and work that IBM is doing in Malawi under an agriculture invitation mission for climate innovation sprint. And thank you in advance for your work to help farmers in Malawi. But besides these partnerships, we also need global political will to transform our food systems. Issues of climate change are very, very critical, and all the pledges that have been made here at COP, Malawians have listened and are listening. The moment I land, I'm representing the president, the questions will be, when is the money coming? So issues of accessibility, I pray and hope that it shouldn't be a problem again, because I am aware that there is still discussions of what definition climate finance is all about. But I say, arguably come to Malawi and see what happened in March. That will give you the definition and meaning of climate finance. It's not a theoretical perspective, it's practical. We are talking what we have seen. If it were in the medical field, we would say we have diagnosed this problem from the epidermis to the bone marrow. We know what this problem is. This week at COP, we are eager to advance great and more urgent action to address the climate crisis and elevate the importance of building a safer, healthier world with a food system that nourishes our people and our planet. As I conclude, I say thank you again to the organizers for bringing needed attention to the importance of food security, climate and nutrition, and support for innovations. We know we need them. Thank you to the other speakers too for the work you are doing in Malawi to help advance prosperous food secure communities. Just know that we are smiling at you, and thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, Minister Usi. Thank you for being here and for your thought leadership and sharing your work in Malawi. The potential impacts to women, children, and smallholder farmers are very exciting. And I would say that your perspective and learnings from the eye of the problem, as you described, are infinitely valuable. And we support your spirit that no one should be left behind. Thank you so much for being here. Now we're going to move into the panel discussion. I'm going to invite my colleague, Rose Barbuda, who serves as Senior Policy Advisor for Farm Journal Foundation, to come forward, and she'll take it from here.
Thank you, Tricia. I'd like to invite the panelists to please join me in the front and take a seat. Thank you all for coming today. I know it's a busy day, and I'd like to thank the participants for coming and sharing their organization's important work in this area. Special thanks to the team at CGIAR for their wonderful support throughout the week, and especially for helping us organize this event. I'd now like to turn to the panel and ask everyone to introduce themselves and their organizations. Maybe tomorrow you can start. I think you pressed the button.
There we are.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tamara Wittes. I'm the Director of Foreign Assistance at the U.S. State Department.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today. I'm Carmen Sansegundo. I'm Director of Corporate Social Responsibility and ESG at IBM.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful to have you all here. My name is Afshan Khan. I'm the coordinator of the Scaling Up Nutrition Movement, which is a coalition of nationally led partners at the country level, 66 countries, government, civil society, Sun Business Network, academia and research networks in country, UN, and civil society all working together.
Hola, good afternoon. My name is Ana Catalina Suárez Peña, and I am on behalf of more than 200 food banks across the world located in more than 50 countries, organizations, food recovery organizations that are helping more than 56,000 organizations on the different municipalities across the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited about this panel because of the amazing work that all your organizations do and the perspectives that you will all bring from government, private sector, and NGO. So I'll just start by just giving a bit of additional context, although my esteemed colleagues have already done a bit of that. Just to say that smallholder farmers in lower income countries who have done little to contribute to climate change are being hit hardest by extreme weather. Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia have the world's largest concentration of people coping with poverty and malnutrition. But average temperatures there are rising faster in these regions than anywhere else in the world. The majority of these people, like His Excellency from Malawi stated, the majority of these people rely on agriculture for their livelihoods. And they lack the resources to adapt to climate shocks, especially climate finance, innovation are desperately needed for these people to adapt. Without access to these tools and more productive inputs, they're at greater risk of losing their harvests, their livestock, and ultimately their livelihoods and their ability to feed their families and the community. With that said, I'd like to turn to my panel and ask, I can start with Carmen. Oh, sorry, no. I'm going to start with Ana Catalina, actually. IBM's going to be last. Sorry, Carmen.
You are leaving me for the last one?
Yeah. I'm leaving you last because there's going to be a new perspective on private sector. I'll start with Ana Catalina. Can you talk about the current food and nutrition crisis and how climate change is really affecting women and children, and how, and from your organizational perspective, like some of the trends in food loss and waste?
Yes, of course, thank you. And thank you very much to FarmLink and the invitation for being here, and to you for being here to hear about this important topic. What we are seeing, and thank you very much, Professor, for all the introduction that you did, is how the malnutrition and food insecurity is hitting the most vulnerable populations. What we are seeing in the last 3 years, more or less, is how the floods and climate event has been hitting the most vulnerable. If you see what has been happening in Asia Pacific, in Africa, and in Latin America, but mostly in Central America, is the most vulnerable population has been hit by the different climate events. We are talking about floods, but let me just link that what is happening with the gender nutritional gap. What we are seeing, if you go to the last FAO report, the gender gap about nutrition is growing. We are talking about like a 4% more of women are suffering the malnutrition. We are talking that 31%, almost 32% of women are experiencing food insecurity. And how we are seeing with the 56,000 organizations that we are serving in the more than 50 countries where our food banks are working, is they are facing problems to access to food, but not just food in general. The nutritional available food has been reduced. They are accessing to less nutritional food, but at the same time, of course, as we know, many of the people that work with this type of, with the communities, always women are the last that are accessing to the food when they are in the families, when they need to take a decision about who is eating at the level of the families, women are the last. Then what we are doing is to ensure that different companies in the global scale, we are working with more than 50 companies, in the regional scale with the largest regional companies in 200 more or less, and in the local scale, more than 1,000 companies, to ensure that they are reducing surplus food, reducing food loss and waste with the impact of the reduction of the methane emissions, but at the same time, sending that food that is edible food, that is accomplished with all the food security elements to the most vulnerable people at the same time. Last year, all the food banks across the world served more than 32 million people facing hunger. Then what we are seeing is a trend where food loss and waste is growing, but at the same time, we are talking about 700 million population is facing hunger while the gender gap is growing. Then we need to reduce food loss and waste, not just to reduce climate impact in those communities, to ensure that communities are accessing to more nutritious food.
Thank you, that was amazing. Afshan, I'd love to hear from the Scaling Up Nutrition movement and the UN in terms of the broader trends. And the same question, how is a global food security crisis, what are the trends that are happening? How is climate impacting women and children?
First of all, thank you very much to the organizers for being here. It's a real honor to join this esteemed panel and also hear from the director of CGIAR and the minister. And I'll just pick up a couple of points they raised. First of all, the numbers on hunger are clear, but 3.1 billion people do not have access to a healthy diet, linked to the FAO recent report that came, the SOFI report that came out. We've definitely seen post-COVID that the rates of malnutrition have increased. There was progress prior to COVID due to stunting, but we've had a confluence of different factors now that include climate, that include conflict, that include rising food prices, that have all led to increased rates of both stunting and wasting among children, some of the highest record levels for wasting that we've seen in a long time, with a particular impact in certain parts of sub-Saharan Africa, the Horn, the Sahel, Asia as well. So in a sense, things are not heading in the right direction. And in that way, what it really means for scaling up nutrition as a movement that brings together key stakeholders in the country in 66 countries is really to unpack with governments, because the country focal point is often under the Prime Minister's office or the office of the President, to bring together the stakeholders that influence the nutrition outcomes. And that is linked to the agri-food systems, it's linked to the ministers of climate and environment, to the health agenda, as we heard so clearly from the COP organizers on the first health days. It's linked to issues around social protection. And in that sense, what we're really seeing is the need to go back to some very specific basics. That's one is strengthened healthcare systems that very clearly track and monitor outcomes for children. And at the newly released WHO guidelines on wasting will very much help towards empowering mothers and communities to better detect and treat. The second thing, and I think brings us very much to the theme of this conversation, is agri-food systems and their transformation is essential for getting the good nutritional outcomes we need. And that means that really there's a few things that were spoken to already. Local indigenous foods that are more nutrient dense, sustainable, promote biodiversity, and are resilient and adaptable to contexts are going to be incredibly important if we're going to be able to feed the planet and not cost the earth. If I look at the subcontinent of Africa, where I spent 15 years of my career, the population of young people is going to double by 2050. That means we're going to have to be able to produce more food for the continent, but also, as the minister rightly pointed out, it is a large exporter of food and it's the backbone of the economy. So we need both local food production that's sustainable at an affordable price, so we don't end up with the levels of malnutrition we see. And we're also going to need to make sure that women are appropriately invested in, not just for farming, but also as distributors of food, as market vendors, as mothers, and as caregivers. So to me, I'm very excited to see the gender piece of CGIAR. It will be a big push for Sun in the coming year because we've realized that the influence women have is far-reaching. It's not just on food production, it's also on the intergenerational cycle of malnutrition, but it's also with, I think, young adolescent girls having the power to be the change that we want to see in societies where we're operating. The other piece I did want to raise, and I would be remiss without doing it, is that Sun has had some experience in this area in terms of agricultural budgets for smallholder partners, tax abatements in Bangladesh, Kyrgyzstan, Philippines, and Papua New Guinea to see better promotion of civil society engagement and small, medium enterprises in the area of food production. And I think that is going to be an essential element as well. I think COVID was a big shock to many countries that then had to face increased prices, were unable to import foods, and it's really forced a pushback to a lot more focus on domestic production of traditional indigenous foods that are nutrient dense. The director mentioned millet. Millet is one. In Africa, we're seeing also the need for better use of sorghum. So that research and evidence that's being generated on what are nutrient-dense foods, how can they influence the food systems, and how can we get them to production through small and medium enterprises can be a game changer for addressing malnutrition. There was also a mention of food loss and waste. Again, I'd like to come back to Sun Business Network in Kenya. They're supporting a company called Kwanza Tukele Foods, which sources from local vendors, pre-cooks food products with biogas, and collects food waste to power biogas digesters, resulting in kind of a circular economy. And I raise this because we need the innovation, and we need the innovation for food production, but we also need the innovation in urban areas if we're going to reduce the issues linked to carbon emissions that we're seeing from the sector as well. I want to come back also to reinforcing traditional practices. One of the best traditional practices the world has for better nutrition for children is breastfeeding. And that is both creating immunities for the child, it's empowering mothers to be able to care for their children with exclusive breastfeeding at 6 months of age. So the legislation that's put in place by governments to prohibit the use of breast milk substitute, which costs far more in terms of being able to, its costs in terms of both how it's produced, how it's distributed, It's a quick win, and I think we need to see a much stronger push from governments on protecting and not allowing breast milk substitutes into the market, but a lot more work by all of us in country, with civil society, with women, in creating the space for women to be supported to breastfeed. And in different places, that means different things. It's time use for mothers in many places where women are both farmers, agricultural vendors. In urban areas where there are large, let's say, factories being produced, rooms for breastfeeding, all of these are really critical factors. Let me end by perhaps saying that the role of governments here is key. And I was very inspired to listen to the minister from Malawi, because if we have strong political will and leadership, regulations and incentives that are supportive of what is needed in terms of food labeling, as well as how food is procured, government for hospitals, for schools, for military are often the largest procurers of food. So dietary-based guidelines in countries have a tremendous influence as well. So for me, if we're aligning nutrition, food systems, climate policies, and actions together in a sustained way, we'll be able to tackle malnutrition in the way it deserves, cutting across all sectors as an integral part of the agenda moving forward in the same way climate change is starting to be.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping tomorrow, maybe since you have the mic, do you mind answering the same question, how the current global food security crisis has impacted State Department? From your perspective, how's the climate crisis in particular affecting women and children?
Sure. First, let me just say thank you, Rose. Thank you to the Farm Journal Foundation for pulling this event together. I think it is an important opportunity, and I'm really grateful to be with all of you. So, look, I think that our approach to this set of interlocking challenges that my colleagues have described so well, climate, development, nutrition, and human welfare. Our approach is really bringing together several themes: adaptation, innovation, and localization. Mr. Minister, you spoke about Feed the Future, and we're very proud to be a partner with you in Feed the Future in Malawi. Feed the Future is our flagship U.S. global hunger initiative. It's a $2 billion a year investment by the United States government to combat global hunger. It's a whole of government approach that works to do three things: to drive more inclusive and sustainable agriculture-led growth, to ensure that communities and their food systems, especially the most vulnerable communities, are more resilient to shocks like climate change, natural disasters, and to improve nutrition, especially for women and children. So those three objectives together, and Feed the Future works in more than 40 countries around the world. In the areas where we have Feed the Future programs, we have seen strong results. We've seen poverty, stunting, and malnutrition come down in those areas by 20 to 25%. So we know it makes a difference. We see the difference. And we're very grateful that we're able to use this platform to support communities. But our in-country programs through Feed the Future have to be complemented by investments in research and support for policy reforms. If we don't do all three of these things together, we're not going to have the kind of impact. We're trying to tackle exactly the challenges that you laid out. And so we try to do this in partnership. We've had success through collaboration, including with CGIAR, with the Gates Foundation, and others. Just to give you a couple of examples to make this concrete, things that we have been able to scale up through these partnerships. drought-tolerant maize, for example, we've been able to take the research, apply it on the ground, and reach more than 7 million farming families across Eastern and Southern Africa. So that's a significant scaling up of impact. We can't do that alone, but we do it in partnership. Another example, biofortified orange sweet potatoes are reaching millions in Africa, combating vitamin A deficiency, and that has long-term impacts for development. So those are just a couple of examples of where we try to bring together the research and innovation with localized application and integration. But looking ahead, I think we're gonna need to do more. We're gonna have to work faster. We're gonna have to innovate faster to keep up with the pace of climate change, to keep up with the evolution of pathogens and pests, and to keep up with the growth in demand for food. And so with that in mind, we've taken another step in our innovation investments. In partnership with the African Union and the FAO, we launched this year the Vision for Adapted Crops and Soils. This is a project that aims to focus on the fundamentals of food security, which are climate-resilient crops and healthy soils in which to grow them. Here at COP, we announced a new multi-donor funding platform for the Vision for Adaptive Crops and Soils. It's working through IFAD. And the idea here is that together we can do even more to expand our investments in research on crops that have traditionally been neglected by the research community, including some of those traditional crops, indigenous crops, things like fonio, sorghum, pigeon pea, finger millet. And so that is a new initiative for us, but doubling down on what we have learned about what works through Feed the Future.
I know you can go on. I have second questions on solutions.
Good.
So I would like to turn to, no problem. I'd like to turn to IBM. As an upstate New Yorker, I'm really proud of the investments that that IBM has made around Aim for Climate. They were one of the first global companies to announce Aim for Climate commitments and support smallholder farmers in Africa. So last year, in fact, you gave a brief progress report, and I would love for you to just talk about the role of the private sector and the amazing work that you're doing to support small-scale farmers using IT.
Thank you so much. So as a technology company, we really believe technology is going to be key in climate change. And it's going to help all of us to fight climate change, but mostly vulnerable communities. Like we join Aim for Climate with our IBM Sustainability Accelerator program. What is IBM Sustainability Accelerator program? It's a pro bono initiative which we partner with governments and nonprofit organizations to offer IBM technology like AI. We all have heard about AI recently, and cloud, and our expertise to really help vulnerable communities. We join Aim for Climate. We have also joined Prepare, and we have projects on water and agriculture and also on energy consumption. But what are we doing? Let me give you one practical example. So I'm gonna go for Malawi. But in Malawi, we partner with, for example, Hyper International, and how we help the smallholder farmers. So we have deployed a platform that help them have access to weather forecast. So if a small farmers have access to weather forecast using AI, what are the results of that? The results are better production. We have, in some cases, double or triple the production of smallholder farmers, more money coming the way, which is super important for their families. And we are right now in Malawi, we have implemented a pilot project with 200 farmers that is impacting directly 1,000 people. Do you know what's the impact for 1,000 people? But it's not only in Malawi. We also have projects, for example, with Plan 21 in Costa Rica. Costa Rica, we have deployed a pilot with 300 farmers, but also we are working in Argentina, Colombia, Chile, with 1,300 more farmers. And we are giving them a mobile app. We all have mobile phones, so a mobile app. And it's giving them access to weather forecast, but also agricultural data and certification. That means that small farmers are able to prove that their foods and their crops are safe to consumption. And that's a big change for smallholder farmers. But today, this is some of the things that we are working through technology and we can do now to solve the issue. But I want to also make a call to this room because I think we also can do something for the future, and it's time to work on the future. I have heard innovation, I have heard women, and I think there are two things that food insecurity and skills have in common, and is that they affect the most vulnerable communities and women. And if we really want to not only give the tools to the people right now, but we want to make them part of the solution, we also need to skill all of them. We need to give them access to the latest skills on technology and the intersection on technology on sustainability, because they need to be empowered and they need to be the one deciding their future and being part of the solutions that we are going to put in their hands for the future.
Thank you so much. We are short on time, so I'm just going to ask for two more questions of Anna Catalina and the State Department. First of all, Anna Catalina, you have an update on the Aim for Climate Sprint. So I'd love for you to give an update on where you are with regard to food loss and waste and your work there.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. We want to say that we are very proud and excited about the climate sprint. We have been learning a lot, doing everything, the process, and all the learning about the application and the other participants. First, what we want to do with the sprint is leverage the work that we are doing. Let me say that we believe that innovation is becoming more and more important, but the more important piece of the innovation is coming from the communities. The social innovation, even though when largest platforms are taking those innovation and converting in a very important companies or models, are the communities the ones that are bringing up all the social innovations, because they are the ones that are dealing with the different ways to be more resilient to the climate change and the food insecurity. Based on that, what GFN is doing in this moment and presented to the sprint was a 3 innovation that we are doing on the field. The first one is the amount of methane emissions that our food banks are reducing, avoiding through the food recovery and redistribution model that they represent. Food Bank has been working for decades to reduce food loss and waste, and it's very important for us that now, the last 10 years, food loss and waste has been becoming more and more important and being in the public agenda. But we need more support and more resources for that. It's for that the climate, the climate vision about the food loss and waste is becoming more important for us, because it's allowing us to demonstrate that we can avoid before to mitigate. Because is the word that when we are reducing is the one that is allowing us to reduce and avoid emissions at the same time. But we are working in the virtual food banking networks, and the virtual food banking networks is looking again to avoid emissions. And I think this is very important because we can be very resilient, but we cannot be resilient forever. Then if we don't avoid and we don't change where we are going, the most vulnerable communities are going the ones that are facing the resilient solutions, not the ones that are having the resources. And the third one is the Agriculture Recovery Program. In the Global South, let me say that I was the Latin American Regional Director for 5 years, and what we were seeing is almost 40% of the total agriculture sector production was lost. and 80% of the producers were small and medium farmers. And it's happening the same in Africa, and it's happening the same in Asia Pacific. What we believe is we need to support the agriculture farmers. We need to support bringing them technology. We really believe that technology and AI is a key element. But at the same time, as we know now that methane emissions, avoiding methane emissions is the faster way to reduce climate change, we believe that food recovery and redistribution is the faster way to reduce food loss and waste. It's for that that we believe that agriculture recovery programs are allowing us to increase nutrition food. As you know, the most vulnerable population are the ones that are eating less nutritional food, is the ones that are eating less fruit and vegetables. One of our commitments is to increase the amount of nutrition food that the people that we are serving are consuming. The most nutritional food is the most lost and wasted food that we have, according with FAO. 60% of the total food that the food banks are delivering across the world are the most nutritional food that we are losing and wasting. Then agriculture recovery projects are very important for us to our commitment to increase the nutritional food that we are providing to the people that we are serving.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last question for Tamara, because I had 2 questions for you all, but we ended up doing like 1.5. You've explained how the U.S. government is really stepping up on the food and nutrition crisis. I'm wondering how you are going to incentivize other governments, because climate adaptation funding really for ag research, but for the climate adaptation piece is really lacking. How are you going to work and incentivize other governments to step up?
Rose, thanks. Look, the United States is very proud that we're co-leading AIM for Climate with the UAE. We see this as ambitious but critical work to encourage governments, private sector, and academia to increase their investments in climate-smart agriculture and food systems worldwide. What we've seen so far from AIM for Climate is that we've got over $13 billion in climate-smart investment commitments across public, private, and nonprofit sectors. I think we're going to see more announcements this week. So I think it's off to a great start. The vision for adaptive crops and soils that I mentioned before, that is one example of a climate innovation sprint. The gender work that we were discussing earlier in the panel are also, I think, incredibly successful innovation sprints. I think you've got $50 million for your gender innovation sprints, and that's really exciting. So this is just the beginning of what I think can be catalytic work. For us as well, we are making investments in scientific innovation through our innovation labs programs. I grew up 6 blocks from one of America's great land-grant universities, Michigan State University. Across the U.S., we have universities that have been doing incredible food science work for generations, and we are working to get that innovation, get those technologies into the hands of smallholder farmers and ranchers worldwide, because that's what it's going to take to really scale up impact.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank the U.S. government for their amazing commitment earlier this week, as Tricia mentioned, to CGIAR, and for all the great work and leadership around AIM for Climate. Thank you so much. And thank you, panelists. And thank you, Your Excellency, for joining us as well, and Ismahain for giving the opening remarks. We really appreciate your presence and for really elevating this important issue. Thank you.